Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Trajan. Trajan is a board game designed by Stefan Feld. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks. This is Trajan, set up for a two-player game. To set up, each player takes a personal board and all workers in that color. They put their military leader and one of their workers in the military camp space and another worker in the worker camp space. Each player puts their Arch of Trajan on the one space of their action circle, and one of their discs on the victory point track and one on the Senate track here. This is also going to determine turn order with the player on the bottom going first, so you should put these clockwise from one player in a stack. Next, players are going to sort and shuffle the different tiles by type. You can see them all laid out here, but you're going to remove 3 demand tiles totally from the game. Those are these green round ones here. Nobody gets to look at them. Then, depending on the number of players, you can see we're a 2-player game, so you're going to put forum tiles on the indicated spaces of the forum, and those are the green back tiles. They're also going to fill all the provinces on the indicated squares up here. The first 3 spaces of the forum, however, are actually extra action tiles, which have an orange back. Again, they're randomized and placed out face up. The construction tiles are placed randomly on the indicated spaces of the construction track, all face up so everybody can see them. And the time marker is placed on the starting space, which is an arrow of the indicated time track. In a 3 or 4 player game, you're going to use different tracks than a 2-player game. The ships can be laid out in the indicated spaces with the colored side up. The gray side is going to be face down for now. And before going any further and revealing any other pieces, the players have to allocate their action markers, 2 per tray on their particular boards. You can see it's already been done here. After allocating their action markers, now players can shuffle and reveal the different Trajan tiles here in stacks based on type. You can see all of each different type is in a particular stack, but only the top one is visible. Next, players can draw 1 bonus tile from the bag and put it yellow side face up in front of them, and then they're going to draw 2 more bonus tiles from the bag and put them both yellow side face up on the indicated spaces beside the Senate track. Lastly, you shuffle the deck of cards and then you reveal 1 card and then another card to make 2 face-up discard piles on either side of the deck. We're now ready to start the game. The game begins with a brief preparation step and then proceeds to the main game. The game is played over 4 quarters, each composed of 4 rounds, which are indicated by 1 loop around this round track down here. Player turns are composed of 3 phases, which are rearrange action markers and move the time marker, then accomplish Trajan tile, and then perform 1 action. At the end of each quarter, there's a scoring phase, and at the end of the 4th quarter, there's a final scoring. So before the game, there's a brief preparation step. The first part is in turn order, meaning from the bottom of this stack up, players are going to draw 3 cards from the commodity deck. They can take them in any combination from the discard piles or the top of the deck, but if at any time a discard pile is empty, you immediately replace it with the top card from the deck. So a player might take this card, for instance, and then draw this card from the deck and then another card from the deck to form their hand of 3 cards. So all players are going to partake in this until all players have a hand of 3 cards. It's for their eyes only. After that, in player order, players are going to pick 3 Trajan tiles from the top of each of these stacks, and they have to pick them from 3 different stacks. Each player can pick from the same stacks, but individual players have to pick from 3 different stacks, and they put them on spaces 2, 4, and 6 of their individual player board. Once that's complete, the main game can begin. The first part of a player's turn is to rearrange action markers, and they do that by picking up all of the markers in one particular tray, it can be any tray they want, and then placing them sequentially along the other trays in clockwise order. So for instance, this guy has to place 1 of these, although he can choose which one in the next tray, and then 1 in the tray after that. Simultaneously, while the player's carrying out their action, another player in the game should move the time marker as many spaces as pieces picked up. So in this example, he had to pick up the whole tray, which was 2, so this time marker would move 2 spaces clockwise. The next part of a player's turn is to accomplish a Trajan tile, and must be done if possible, and the way you do that is whatever tray you landed in this case, he moved 2, so he ended in this tray here. If there was a Trajan tile on the indicated space with markers matching the color of markers in the tray, there can be more, so in this instance, there's a pink one and these 2, but there is the indicated colors here. He immediately scores as many points as indicated on that, moves along the track, and does whatever the action is. In this case, he would draw 2 cards from the top of this deck. And then you just remove the Trajan tile from the game. However, there is one exception to that. These Trajan tiles in this stack stay in front of the player for the rest of the game. The last part of the turn is totally optional, but you're probably going to want to do it, and that is perform 1 action. You can perform the action indicated on the space you landed in. You can see the different symbols here that correspond with the different symbols on the map. In this example, the player landed on the forum space, which you can see indicated here. All they do in that particular action is just take any of the tiles in the forum or one of these extra action tiles and place it in their supply area. We'll just go over the rest of the actions clockwise from there. So the next is the military action. The military action has 3 different choices. First, the player could move one of their workers from this area to the military camp here, and for the rest of the game, that worker will now be a legionnaire. Alternatively, you can move your military leader, which already starts in the camp, to any adjacent space, and you can see the green lines that indicate, and wherever you move, you would take that corresponding forum tile and put it in your area, just like you had taken the forum action. The last option for this action is to take one of your legionnaires that's still in the military camp, so he's never moved, and move him immediately to the space with your leader. Even if your leader was really far away, he moves right to where the leader is. He doesn't care about adjacency, and you score that many points. However, if there's another legionnaire of another player's color in it, you get that many points minus 3, but it's never possible to get a negative score this way. You just wouldn't score. Each area can only hold 1 legionnaire of each color, so you could never bring another green one here, for instance, or a red in this particular case. Next is the Senate action. The Senate action is down here. All you do is move 1 space along the Senate track and score the indicated number of points. If there's already somebody there when you were to move, you would move on top of them. It's also important to note that you could not perform this action if you were on the 8th space already, because that's as far as you can go. After that, we move on to the Trajan action, which is this particular area here. To perform this action, just take one of the tiles from the top of the stack and put it where your Arch of Trajan is. Then your Arch of Trajan moves clockwise to the next empty space. It might skip some spaces because there might be Trajan tiles already on spaces. If all your spaces are full, though, the Arch of Trajan will move to the center here, and as soon as one of your Trajan tiles is accomplished, it will immediately move to the empty space. If all the spaces are full and the Arch of Trajan is already in the center before you perform this action, unfortunately you cannot perform the Trajan action that turn. Next is the construction action, and there's 2 options for this one. First is you can move one of your workers from here to the worker camp here. Now for the rest of the game, they're officially a worker. Alternatively, you could move one of your workers from the worker camp to any space in this area. The first one has to be anywhere you want. After that, they have to be orthogonally adjacent. So if this guy had gone on an earlier turn, for instance, this guy could only go in these ones here. But when you take it, you score as many points as indicated, and you put it in your area on the indicated spaces of your board. If it's the first of that type, there are different symbols on your board that correspond with these, and you get to take a special action as if you had performed that action. So for instance, this one, when it's the first one of a type you get to perform the shipping action because you can see the boat symbol there. You do not get to perform the special action, though, if you already have of that type. So if I got another one of this fountain, for instance, I wouldn't get to do this. It's also possible to place on a space where somebody else already is. So if a red player later won here, he would get no points, but then he'd be able to place adjacent to that on future turns. So he may want to do that for strategic reasons. And lastly is the seaport action. And the seaport action has 4 different options. The first is to draw 2 cards from the face down deck. Must be from the face down deck, not the face up discards. And then look at them and discard any 1 card from your hand. Doesn't have to be one of these, but you discard it face up in either discard pile as normal. The next option is just to draw 1 card from either discard pile. Remember, if a discard pile is empty, you immediately replace it from the top of the deck. Third is to play 1 or 2 cards from your hand face up in front of yourself from your hand, and then you're going to replenish that many cards. So for instance, if I had a hand of 3 cards like this, I might want to play these 2 face up in front of myself. Then I would get to draw back 2 cards. Note that when you replenish your hand there, you do have to draw them from the deck, not from the discard piles. And the 4th and final option is to ship goods from your hand. You play them in front of yourself just like in the previous action, but you pick a ship and you score points accordingly. And you'll see different symbols in the ships. Like for instance, this is none of the cards are the same. So if you play 3 cards that are not the same, you would score 6 points. Also, after you play on a ship that's colored, you flip it over the gray side. If it's already in the gray side, you don't flip it again, but only 1 person gets those higher point values for the turn. The gray side has lower point values. And those cards just stay in front of you in your personal supply, like the cards played in front of you that you replenish your hand for. However, in this particular case, you do not replenish your hand. The only other thing to note about performing actions is the extra action tile. So you see here, this is the seaport extra action tile. If you had one of these on your board and you took the seaport action, you could immediately discard this and then take the seaport action again. So you can do it twice in a turn. Also, if you have a +2 marker, which you can get by completing these Trajan tiles, you keep this +2 on any of these spaces, and then if you were to discard the extra action tile, like in this case the seaport one, you could immediately take the seaport action 2 more times. But the +2s, once assigned to a particular area, which happens when you get this tile, they stay there for the rest of the game. So the +2 is never discarded, but the extra action is discarded each time. A round ends after a player's turn. They get to finish the turn if the time marker either ended on the start space or went past it. At this time, if there's not already 3 demand tiles revealed, you'll flip one face up so everybody can see it, and it's going to stay on the board, and you're just going to continue play clockwise. If there's already 3 demand tiles face up, you're going to move on to a quarterly scoring. So the first part of a quarterly scoring is to spend demand tiles as indicated by these demand markers here. So in this example, each player would have to spend 2 flames and 1 cookie looking thing to not lose any points. And if you have the tiles in front of you, you must spend them. You can't choose to lose points or anything like that. For each one you can't pay, you lose points. If you can only pay 2 of them, you're going to lose 4 points. If you can't pay 2 of them, you're going to lose 9 points. And if you can't pay all 3, you're going to lose 15 points as indicated there. And when you pay them, you just discard them. They're totally out of the game. You're not going to see them anymore. Except for these, if you have these Trajan markers accomplished, they're going to count for you, but they're going to stay in your player area for the rest of the game. So they're pretty nice to have. After all players pay the demand, next we go on to the Senate votes, and you can see depending where you are along this track, you're going to have a certain number of votes. That's that number under here. You're also going to have some forum tiles in your area that may add votes for you as well. Whoever has the most votes becomes council and gets to choose one of these tiles and put it face up in front of themselves, yellow side up. Whoever has the second most votes gets to take whatever tile is left and put it face up in front of himself, gray side up, which is a little bit less desirable, but still good to have. If there's a tie in votes, it's whoever's farthest on the Senate track that wins. So in this case, the green player would win if they were tied. Also, if they're in the same space, it's whoever's on the highest that counts as being farthest along the track. So green player would win again. After this, you immediately discard any of these tiles you had, even if you didn't need them to get the most votes. They are totally out of the game. After selecting the bonus tiles, all the discs return to the start space of the Senate track with the highest vote on top and the lowest vote on the bottom. Everybody else in vote order between them. At this point, you refresh the board. Anything still left in the forum is wiped out and replaced accordingly. 3 extra actions will be here, and regular forum tiles will be there. You'll draw 2 new bonus tiles from the bag, yellow side up on the indicated spaces of the Senate track, and flip all the ships back to the colored side if they were flipped over. And lastly, you'll refill forum tiles in the spaces in the provinces that are totally empty, meaning there's no legionnaire, no military leader. So for instance, this one is totally empty, so you would put a new forum tile here. But even if this tile wasn't here, you would not refill this one because there's some guys present in the area. And then the quarterly scoring is over. You just take these off the board and play proceeds left. After the 4th quarter scoring, the game is over and a final scoring takes place. Each commodity in a player's hand is worth 1 point. Each worker in the worker camp is worth 1 point. Each legionnaire in the military camp not on the board is worth 1 point. Each unaccomplished Trajan tile on your action circle is worth 1 point. And for each set of 3 identical symbols you've collected in the construction area, so for instance, these would be 3 identical symbols, you get 10 points. For each set of 4 identical, you get 20 points. And then the bonus tiles you've collected score is indicated. For instance, this one is 2 points for every legionnaire you have out in the provinces. Not in the military camp, but in the provinces. And whoever has the most points wins. Let's get going with this example playthrough. So we start with the brief preparation step. We know the red player is going to go first because he's in the bottom of this stack here. And then it's going to proceed clockwise with the green player next. So he gets to draw 3 of these commodity cards. He's first going to draw this one. Remember, whenever a discard pile runs out, you replace it. He's going to draw the next one from the top of the deck, and the next one from the top of the deck as well. And this forms his hand. Nobody else gets to see these, but we're going to leave them face up here to make it easy for right now. Then the green player is going to go, and he's going to do the same thing. So now he has a hand of 3 cards as well. Now, starting with the first player, players are going to draw from 3 of these different stacks. Has to be different, and lay them out on their board on the 2, 4, and 6 spaces. So he's going to take this one and stick it here. And then he's going to take this one and put it over here. And remember, they had to lay out their action markers before they got to see these Trajan tiles, and that's kind of important for the game. And lastly, he's going to take this one and put it in the 6th space. So now the other guy does the same thing and picks 3 of these. So now we can start the main game. This player goes first because it stays in turn order. So he's going to pick up these 2, and while he's doing this, the other guy moves this 2 spaces because 2 were picked up from the tray. So he places them 1 and 2. And now he's got to accomplish a Trajan tile if he can. Because he has 2 pinks there, and this costs 2 pinks, he does. So he immediately gets 4 points. So he moves that on this track here, and he gets a +2 token. He's got to assign that +2 token to one of the actions, but if he ever takes an extra action of that type, he's going to get to go an extra time. So he decides to put it with the construction, and now this tile is totally removed from the game. Now he gets to take actions for the turn. Because he finished in the Senate space, if he wants to, he can take the Senate action. He says, why not? So he goes up here 1 space, which is worth 2 points. So he scores those 2 points, and now it's the next guy's turn. For this player's turn, he's going to pick up this group of 2, so simultaneously the other guy moves this 2 spaces, and he's going to drop them out 1, 2. Now again, he can accomplish this Trajan tile. Yes, he can. So he gets 2 points for doing so. Then he gets 2 workers immediately turned into legionnaires. They're going to go up here, and now he gets to carry out the forum action because he's in the forum space. So he can take any of these tiles here. For now, he's just going to take the forum tile extra action. So later on, if he takes the forum action, he can discard that to take another forum action immediately after. So it goes back to this player's turn, and play is going to proceed like this. So this guy's going to pick up a group of 3, and remember this moves 3 spaces because he did so, and then he's going to lay them out 1, 2, and 3. And again, he can complete this Trajan tile because he has the right colors there, so he gets 2 points, and then he gets 2 workers right to the construction area. Then he gets to take the construction action. For right now, he's just going to want to score some points, so he's going to put this out here, and he's going to get 5 points for doing so because this has a 5 on it. Also, he's going to get a free Trajan action because that's the first one he got of this type, and the Trajan symbol is there. So he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he can take any of these Trajan tiles from the tops of one of these stacks. He decides to go with this one, and it goes where his Trajan arch is, and then his Trajan arch moves clockwise to the next open space. This is not open, so it jumps up here to the 3. It's going to be the next player's turn. We're going to move ahead a little bit in the game so you can see some more interesting situations. Welcome back. You can see some of the demand tiles have been revealed because we made a few circles around the track. It's this player's turn. He's going to go 1, 2, so this moves 2 spaces, and then he gets to take a construction action. So first thing he's going to do is he's going to take this guy and put him here and score 5 points. And then because this is the first one of this type, he gets to take a free military action as well. So for his military action, he's going to just take his military leader, move him here, and claim this one. And then he can discard his extra action tile to take 2 more, because he also has a +2 instead of the normal 1. So he's going to do that. So he gets to take 2 more construction actions, one of which he's going to go here to score 4 points and to get a free forum action. So for his forum action, he's going to take this guy here and put him in his area. And then he gets 1 more worker action because he has that +2. Remember, that +2 stays there. He's just going to take 1 worker from his group and put him out on that worker area. Now it's this guy's turn, and it's likely that this is going to go around 1 more time. So we're going to do 1 action here. He decides he wants to move up on the Senate track, so he takes this 1, moves it here. And remember, this is now reached or past the start, so he's going to take this, and he's going to get 4 points. Goes right on top of that stack. And then and 1 more demand tile is revealed. So the next time around, we're going to come back and see what the quarterly scoring looks like. Welcome back. It's almost the first quarterly scoring. It's this guy's turn, so he's going to move 2, and that means he takes a Senate action, and it is going to be the first quarterly scoring because this comes around. So he gets 5 points and goes on top for moving there. And then we move on to the first quarterly scoring. We do this because there's already 3 demand tiles out here face up, so we don't flip up a new one, and players have to pay those types of demand tiles. So he's good on this one because he can pay with this tile here, and he can pay this here, so this is gone from the game. Unfortunately, he cannot play the flame, so he loses 4 points. So he goes back 4 on the track, and the other guy's in a very similar position. He can pay this and use the Trajan tile to pay this one, but he as well cannot pay the flame, so he goes back 4 points also. Next, we calculate how many votes each player has. Since they're tied because nobody has any vote markers, this guy has the most votes because he's on top, so he gets to take one of these and keep it on its gold side. He decides he's going to take this one here and put it in front of him, gold side face up. The other guy gets this one because he's second place with the gray side face up. Now these guys go back in order. With the highest voter on top and the other voter on the bottom. In the more-player game, there would be more, but you always follow the order. And we bring out 2 new bonus tiles. These are totally out of the game. These are removed. And then we wipe out this area as well. And we refill accordingly. Now remember, the provinces only get refilled if they're totally empty. Since both these spaces have no tile, but there's guys in them, they don't get refilled. Also, the ships would flip face up if there were any, but there are no ships that were used at this time. So we lay out the new tiles, and then play proceeds clockwise. We'll be back at the end of the game to see the final scoring. Welcome back to the end of the game. It's this player's turn. They're going to pick up this one, which is worth 7. So that goes way beyond the end here, so we know this is the last turn of the game. And remember, when you go beyond 6, you actually have to drop back in the tray you started in. So we're going to go around the group here. And okay, we finished at the seaport action, so this guy gets to take a seaport action. He could draw cards, or he could ship cards, or he could just play cards in front of himself. He decides he's going to use this gray one here, because it's already been flipped, to do 4 different cards for 5 points. So he just puts those in front of him in his personal display, and he moves up 5 points. Now we're going to calculate the quarterly scoring as normal, then we're going to move on to the final scoring. So we finished conducting that quarterly scoring, and now we're going to go into the final scoring. First, each player gets 1 point for each commodity card still in their hand. This guy has 1. The other guy just played all of his cards, so he goes up 1 point. Then each player gets 1 point for each worker in the worker camp. Neither player has any, so neither player gets any points there. Then each player gets 1 point for each legionnaire in the military camp, so green player is going to get another 2 points. Next, each player gets 1 point for each unaccomplished Trajan tile, but neither player has any, so no points there. Now players score points for each set of construction tiles they have of at least 3. This guy only has 3 1s, so he gets none there. But this guy has a big set of 4, so that set is worth 20 points. He also has a set of 3, so that's another 10, so that's 30 points. And then with the help of this wild card, he has another 10. So he gets 40 points that way. That's a lot of points. Finally, we score the bonus tiles, and the bonus tiles do different things. This guy gets 3 points for every yellow side thing he has, so he gets 3, 6, 9, 12 points for that one. This one gives him 9 points if he has a leftover bread biscuit token, and he does. He gets 2 points for every commodity of this type in his face-up display, not in his hand, and these work exactly the same way. The only other ones to note are this one over here. The guy gets 2 points for every legionnaire in a province, like this one would be worth 2 points, but ones down here wouldn't be. And then he also gets half a point for every worker actually in a camp, and that rounds up. So we'll add up the total of these bonus tiles, and whoever has the most points wins. No doubt about it, Trajan is one of the best designed games I've ever played. There's so much to do, and it seems so complicated at first, but it's actually really easy to understand and fits together so nicely. Also, there's so many different paths to victory, and it seems incredibly balanced between the different actions. There's also this kind of balancing act you have to take with you moving your action markers around, because at the start of the game you have 2 in each tray, and that means you can take any action. But whatever action you take as your first action, you're not going to be able to take again immediately after that. So you're constantly trying to figure out, well, how can I take this again, and things like that. It makes for a great game. There's almost too much going on in this game for new players. It's just there's a lot happening all over the board, but the game is really simple, and it's absolutely fantastic. It is a point salad game, meaning there's tons of different ways to score points, and there really is in this game. But it's very competitive, very strategic. It's not one game that you probably want to play once and throw away, though. It's one that you kind of grows on you and you learn it in time. So if that looks interesting to you or for your group, check it out. That's Trajan.